As always, I'm covering the obvious fakery by NASA. This time, absolutely ridiculous, supposedly, with this Artemis rocket headed towards the moon and supposedly carrying 3 test dummies. Give me a break. Everybody at NASA, they're just a bunch of dummies. Supposedly the first mission to the moon in 50 years. And let's break it all down. And actually, before playing the clip from NASA's Artemis rocket launch, let's take a listen to this goofball Don Pettit, this so-called astronaut, more like the head of mockery at NASA. Let's take a listen to what is said here. Just really unbelievable. Take a listen.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
And it makes absolutely no sense why NASA had a working technology back in the 60s to go to the moon, and they destroyed it. And he gives no explanation of why it's destroyed and how it's destroyed. It makes absolutely no sense. And again, this is just nothing but pure mockery. Now let's get right to the footage itself. And besides the obvious fakery, there's the Masonic fingerprints all over the place. Let's get right to it.
Coming up at T-minus 33 seconds, the GLS will hand off control to the ALS. This is.
You just heard the narrator for NASA say T-minus 33 seconds. Of course, all coded, besides the rocket itself being orange. You see the black and white checkerboard symbolism. This is all about Freemasonry. Just like on their runway at Kennedy Space Center, Kennedy being 33 and also the obvious 33 painted on the runway itself. And again, getting back to the rocket and the Masonic checkerboard, the black and the white. There's just so much symbolism in plain sight. They're telling you through signs and symbols who's operating this so-called space agency. Again, the black and white checkerboard, and getting back to this image, again, the same. It all comes down to, when it comes to Freemasonry, with this famous quote from Walter Scott, very famous Freemason, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive." And let's get back to the so-called launch. And definitely, I'm not disputing they actually launch a rocket. Definitely doesn't go into space. Basically just goes into the Bermuda Triangle area.
And here we go.
10.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters ignition.
Boosters ignition. I'm not sure what he's trying to say there, but it sounded pretty funny. Let's take another listen.
Boosters ignition.
Again, I think he's got a bit excited. Yeah, whatever the case is, let's continue on with this nonsense. Nothing more than NASA smoke and mirrors as usual. Let's take a look. And definitely scripted as scripted gets.
And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
Wow, how cringe, how tacky. And what's funny to me is you have millions upon millions of people out there in this world that believe this nonsense. I said it many times, where adults are nothing more than larger sized children and government are their parents. And here's another case. And no matter how horrible, how atrocious their fakery is with NASA, the public's going to buy it hook, line, and sinker. Let's continue on.
Engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 128 miles per hour.
So we see this rocket going up in the sky, but definitely, again, not going into so-called deep space. They just show us just enough to get the public convinced that they're actually going to space. But of course, they cut off the camera before it actually supposedly goes into space. Goes into the supposed low Earth orbit, which I'll get into more later on. But definitely, you never see this continuous flight of any rockets going into space. And there's that huge arc it makes, again, supposedly with a low Earth orbit. And again, remember, this is all about going to the moon. And I'm going to stop it right here for a second and show the diagram Artemis 1 launch and ascent with this, again, diagram where the rocket booster takes off and supposedly propels the capsule itself at low Earth orbit. Of course, we've already seen the downward angle, the huge arc it makes. It's basically coming straight down. And here again is another diagram of the whole entire process. As you see here with the fake phony ball Earth, here's the launch off Florida, supposedly, again, the low Earth orbit, making its way around the fake phony ball Earth, making its way to the moon, and orbiting the moon supposedly comes back to Earth. And I came across this one website, Daryl Gilbert Photography. Let's scroll down here of this fakery, which I have no doubt he believes is real, but whatever the case is, let's scroll down here, which I found pretty interesting with this one particular photo. As I scroll down, here it is right here. Now take a look here. This is the actual supposed launch of Artemis 1 off the coast of Florida. What do you see here? Again, the huge arc coming straight down. Here's the moon. So the question is, where's the footage of this low Earth orbit taking place on the other side of the ball Earth? If it's doing this low Earth orbit, there should be people on the other side of the so-called globe seeing this and filming it. And we don't get that, of course not. So again, just so many anomalies. Basically, liars can't keep their lies straight. We never get footage of the low Earth orbit from the other side of the so-called globe. These rockets simply just dump into the Bermuda Triangle. That's exactly why they have created this bad stigma with the Bermuda Triangle, with planes and ships missing. And as you can see here, this depiction of the Bermuda Triangle from Marvel X-Men number 4, dated 1964, where you see the Bermuda Triangle. What do you see here on the map? Secret Freemason shadow government headquarters. So there's definitely something going on with, again, this stigma they place on the Bermuda Triangle, keeping people out of that region. And again, I believe this is exactly where they've been dumping these rockets into this vicinity here and keeping people away based on the fear of supposedly mysteriously disappearing if you show up in this area. And let's get back to the fakery, the smoke and mirrors fakery with the Artemis launch.
Standing by for solid rocket booster jettison and shortly thereafter.
It's coming straight down. Not going to space.
That the solid rocket boosters have separated these 177-foot boosters.
Now these are the boosters, of course, attached to the rocket itself, themselves, and they're going to spiral out of control and come straight down.
Now the core stage continues to power the flight of Orion, all four RS-25 engines firing, traveling over 3,400 miles per hour, 46 miles downrange.
The rocket boosters coming down, and now the garbage fakery. So what's filming this? They're supposedly in low Earth orbit. What's filming this supposed Artemis rocket? Absolutely ridiculous, and the public will buy it without question, because the public believes nothing until they see it on television programming, and it's just more the same. They have been doing this for years and years. Again, just launching a rocket that doesn't go into space, then they give us a cartoon from space. But that's all you need for the general public. They don't have much discernment. They have piss poor discernment what it comes down to. And let's move this up here a little bit. And to the very end of this clip where they show the supposed Orion capsule detaching from the Artemis rocket. Give me a break. This is a complete joke. It's just a Super Nintendo or PlayStation 1 video game. Take a look at this. Unbelievable how the public doesn't question this. Again, all you need to give them is basically horrible CGI rendering footage, and this is enough for the extremely gullible public to fall for NASA's nonsense. And that brings me to Elon Musk, who I hold in the same regard as Don Pettit. Just another character on the world stage. You see him doing the Masonic diamond sign. And definitely he's not running SpaceX, Tesla, Twitter, all these companies. He's just a figurehead, more or less like a president such as Joe Biden. Just the face of these positions where there's people behind the scenes truly running it. Let's listen to what Elon Musk says. Again, I always say in the world of duality, they give us the truth in plain sight. Let's take a listen to this podcast where he talks about so-called moon missions from the past.
And make sci-fi real, and be on other planets and go back to the moon. Then we need big rockets.
Why do you think we haven't been back to the moon?
Well, I think another way of thinking about it is that the fact that we were able to go to the moon in '69 was such an anomalous situation. It was like reaching into the future and bringing the technology forward that normally wouldn't be there. Like, that was not the natural pace of technology development. It's just that the United States just collectively decided that this has got to be done. We kind of got to beat the Soviets, So
I don't want to sound like, have we not been back since then, or have we?
There were a few trips to the moon. So it wasn't just one.
Okay.
Landings? Like actually landed on the moon and
yeah.
walked? Okay.
I think the last landing was maybe 72.
Okay.
Wow, it sounds weird that we'd be so much more advanced now and we haven't gone back.
I agree. It's totally weird.
And that's all you need to hear. Elon Musk saying it's totally weird that we haven't been back. Quote, we haven't been back in 50 years. And again, this is just mockery on the part of Elon Musk. And just like I showed earlier, the Masonic hand sign. And again, they always have to give us these fragments of truth in plain sight for all to see.